This is 1.4 assignment C, absolute value equations. We're going to start off with the definition of absolute values, which is the absolute value of a real number is defined by, that symbol on the left means absolute value, two vertical lines around A. The two dots with the equals means equals by definition. Okay, and there's two cases. The absolute value of A will be A if A is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, the absolute value of A will be negative A or minus A, or the opposite, really. The opposite sign of A if A is less than 0. In other words, if A is negative, it's the opposite sign, which is positive. If A is greater than or equal to 0, then you can just drop the absolute values. So when we're solving equations involving these absolute values with a variable inside the absolute values, we get these two cases. The first one, we just drop the absolute values. The second one, we drop the absolute values and change the sign of what was inside the absolute values. If there were two terms inside the absolute values, you change both signs of the signs of both terms. Okay, so that's the opposite of A, meaning the opposite sign. I use that a lot in this course. So examples: absolute value of 0 equals 0. That's using the first rule. So I use the green there to signify that I'm using, that's the A in the first rule, this one here, right? Because that's the one that covers when A equals 0. Right? That one, A is the 2, right? This A is the 2, which is greater than 0. So I use which rule? I use the rule for when A is greater than 0, or greater than or equal to be specific. So I just drop the absolute values. I get 2. Right. Absolute value of negative 2, well, is A greater than or equal to 0, or A is less than 0? This is A. A is less than 0, so I have to use this rule. I drop the absolute values and take the opposite of negative 2, which is 2. So this 2 here is the opposite of A. A is negative 2. Okay? So I wrote that out so that you have that in your notes. Okay? That's really critical there. So absolute value of x equals 5. This is the simplest possible equation you could have, absolute value equation. It means that x equals 5. It's just like above, only I replaced x, right? It's just like here, but I replaced a with x, right? Anyway, so I get 5. X could be 5, because then this would apply and you'd get 5. Is 5, or x could be minus negative 5, because then when you do the absolute value you get 5, so that would be like this one. Okay, so we just get x is plus or minus 5. On Hawks they usually give you two spaces, and so you'd write x equals 5 and x equals negative 5. They don't usually use, I don't know if they ever use the plus minus symbol, even though they have it. Okay, a little bit more complicated, but not much. Right, I still have the 5. So this is the case, the stuff inside the absolute value, not x, the stuff inside, the A, this A here is x minus 2, not x. So it's x minus 2 is 5. Because if x minus 2 is 5, the absolute value of 5 is 5, right? Then the other one would be x minus 2 is negative 5, because if you put negative 5 in here, you get 5. Absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So you see what happened if you look at the end result without thinking about all this stuff. Drop the absolute values, gives me one equation. And then drop the absolute values but change the sign, gives me the other one. Now I only change the sign on one side of the equation. It honestly doesn't matter which side you change the sign on, but we almost always do it on the right side. Just because sometimes it's a single integer like this, so it makes it easy rather than two terms. And then because you do those for the easy ones, then when it's more complicated, like maybe there's a x plus 3 over here, or 2x plus 3, then you already have the habit of doing it on the right, so you just keep doing it the same way, right? So that's probably the smart, rather than writing 2 minus x equals 5, which would be correct, but you wouldn't want to do the opposite of both sides. That's not what's going on here. We're just saying if x minus 2 is negative 5, then the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. See, so x minus 2 equals negative 5 is one of the solutions, or we'll give one of the solutions. Then you just have to solve each one for x. Add 2 to both sides, right? Gives you this. Add 2 to both sides gives you minus 3.